What's going on here is much more complex than that.
Can we skip this? Like, hit the skip button or something?
Oh, you don't want to skip this.
Yes, we do.
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my South Park The Stick of Truth hardcore difficulty video walkthrough. So we're going after Tweek, the Meth House, and Tolkien. And we've just traversed past the shitty walk right there. And if you go inside there, there's a side mission that involves killing Mongolians. Which, if you're a fan of the show, you'll know exactly why. And if you do that, you'll get a summon. And the summons are incredibly powerful, but they can't be used on bosses. I'm not going to be using any of the summons, guys. Not because they're not hilarious and I don't like them. It's just because I don't go out of my way to get them, and in combat I just kind of do what works. But this is a boss fight against the guard. This is the power of Mug. It's going to stun him, and then from this point onwards we'll build bleed, and then from that point onwards we'll kill him. And you'll see just how powerful this combination is. The only problem later on in the game with the stun technique is people are immune to it. So if it says they're going to be immune, don't even bother. It's just a waste of a turn. One of the great side effects of mugging people is you get items, and it keeps you stocked up. But that right there was an example of me doing the 2 A's and an X, and all of them did 1 damage, which means there's no point doing it. I should just press X to do straight up damage, or throw things at him, or use the backstab. Later on in the game we're going to get some abilities that give us PP for doing certain things. And what it will do is it'll turn it into a cycle of gaining PP by throwing items at enemies and then using the PP abilities. And it's just a great cycle of damage. But a lot of the defensive attacks as well, if an attack has more than 1 hit, it generally has several. And they can be really tricky to time, especially if you try to predict them, and I get into the habit of trying to predict quite a lot, and it's a mistake. You have to really watch and react, but it is possible to do prediction parries and prediction attacks. For instance, the standard hammer attack by Butters, you can press X before the light, like the frame before the light, and still get the bonus and have it classed as a perfect attack. So you know, the timing is quite flexible. There's a lot of leniency with it. But this is Tolkien's house, and there's his bass guitar. You're black, Tolkien, you can play bass. And a basketball, because he's black as well, which is some of the awesome stereotypes that made that episode so funny. But on top of the house, you'll notice there's kind of like an alien device, and you're going to see a lot of them if you're paying attention, and you can't access them or do anything with them until later on in the game, so don't worry about it. Here's another Chim Pokemon doll. Chim-Pokemon! You got to buy a ticket and buy one, buy. Which, unfortunately in this game, you do not go to Chim Pokemon Camp. And you do not see any of those hilarious rip-off characters. I'm going to take your Rooster and put it in this bag. And that never happens, but it's still quality, and it's still funny. But now that we've done that, the only thing left to do is Tweek, and we need to go to Tweek's coffee shop. As anybody who knows Tweek knows, he likes his coffee. And a little bit more trivia here, if you want to go into the cinema, you can listen to a lot of the really hilarious take-piss trailers featuring Adam Sandler and Rob Schneider, and the digitally remastered versions of Saving Private Ryan and E.T., where they've removed things to make them more politically correct, which is hilarious. But here is the note for Tweek. Once you've done this, Tweek's going to ask you to go to Kenny's house, because Kenny House has the people that bring him the ingredients. Before I do that, I'm going to get this chest, but it's got a key that's needed, so that's not going to work. But Tweek is awesome, and I love his dad, because every time you talk to his dad, he talks like a Hallmark card, and it's got this really soothing guitar behind it as he essentially sells his goddamn coffee beans. But it is pretty funny. Under that bench there is a Chim Pokemon doll, but you need the gnome ability, and you don't get that till later on in the game, so don't sweat it. There is the, is it Hooked on Monkey Phonics loading symbol? And then above it was the Scuzzlebutt, I think his name is, which is inside of Jimbo's gun range, if you've not noticed him. But in the back of the U-Story van there's this homeless dude, and I came in here because I couldn't remember what was in here, and this is an optional fight. It's a side quest from the mayor. She pretty much tasks you with eliminating the homeless people, which would have been awesome if you had to get a van and lure them to California, but you don't do that, you just beat them up. And for some reason the homeless guys have controlled rats and have rats fighting with them, which is kind of weird. So we're going to use the Hammer of Storms to try and get rid of the hobo, because he's the threat here, but he's also stunned from the mug. So it's all pretty simple, there's no real reason to have any trouble with a fight like this. And you get to test out your blocking skills. But those right there were perfect blocks, and I still took 18 damage, so... Like, the final boss, when you block that person's attacks, they can still take 90% of your life bar, especially if you're playing as a character with low life like Jimmy. Jimmy caused me a lot of frustrations because the checkpoints on that boss are horrible. And that was the only instance of the game where I had a problem with it, because I was restarting and reloading every time somebody died, because the last boss can one-shot Jimmy. Whenever I reloaded, I would have to sell all my junk, buy all my equipment, and re-equip my characters before fighting the boss, which has several phases. And he one-shot Jimmy about 4 or 5 times, so I was getting really frustrated. And in the end, I just decided to revive him and test to see whether or not I could still get that achievement for beating the last boss and beating the game without having people knocked out. And in the next attempt, he didn't kill Jimmy because the boss chose me instead. And it's complete and utter random at that point. You have no control over it. If the boss decides to hit Jimmy, you've failed, because he'll just be killed, regardless of perfect blocks. He just kills him every time, which is really annoying, and the only instance in this walkthrough which was even remotely frustrating. And even then, it took me, what, 6 attempts? It was literally 20 minutes, so you're not going to blow your asshole out or raise your blood pressure, because it's all pretty nominal. But you need the gnome ability to get that friend over there. You need to smash the snowman to get him as your friend, and there's a Chim Pokemon doll just here. Pokemon! Furry Cat, Lambtron, and Shoe! Oh, Kenny, why wouldn't you give Cartman Penguin?
What?
It was the last one and he really wanted it.
Oh, this is...
But there is the McCormick garage key. That's going to enable us to get in here. And in here, if you put on the Cartman Bold, the bold mask thing, and the goatee, the evil goatee, you will get a Breaking Bad specific achievement for killing these meth heads, which I haven't done yet, but I intend to. And the strategy is going to be the exact same here, folks. I'm going to use the stun to immobilize one of the people, and then from there we're just going to take them out and divide and conquer. There you go. But there's a couple of things worth mentioning about the game. When you skip cutscenes and you know where you're going, and you don't do any of the side stuff, this game can be beaten in under 4 hours. In fact, if not for getting frustrated in Canada trying to get an achievement that I'm pretty much sure is glitched, I could have probably done it in under 3. And it's not because I'm good, guys. I'm not. You know, I'm just playing. It's literally because the game, the sum of its parts can be navigated exceptionally quickly if you know what you're doing. And maybe that'll make it a game worth speedrunning. Or maybe it'll just, you know, not be something people run into because they're too busy enjoying the world. But I would love to see DLC come to this game. You know, similar to episodic DLC like The Walking Dead. Because there's so much they could do. They've modeled the entire town. They've made the game. You know, they've made the series as a game to be explored. So they could literally give you, you know, episodic DLC where you've got, you know, maybe 2 to 4 hours worth of content. Of extra storyline or a little stuff to do, and I think they could really make it awesome because they write the episodes in a week. And don't get me wrong, there are bad episodes, and even, you know, bad episodes are still pretty good at times. So they could probably easily do it on this side and make a lot of money from it. And the cool thing about Matt Stone and Trey Parker is they've never really been the type of people that do things for the money. Because not only do they openly advocate piracy for spreading awareness and popularity, but they always push boundaries. You know, they've always tried to just take piss out of everything and never draw up distinctions. And they've stuck to their guns, and they would have had a much more successful show if they hadn't, because that's how things work. But South Park has got that niche appeal because they are, you know, completely don't bend to anyone. Aside from, you know, the slight things along the lines of not being able to show Mohammed, even though they already showed Mohammed in the Super Best Friends episode several seasons before, and, you know, publishing this game in other countries, there are scenes removed in the English and European versions because apparently the ESRB just couldn't handle a couple of anal scenes. And obviously in Germany and Australia, there's a whole bunch of German stuff in this game, and more specifically, Nazi memorabilia and sound files of Nazi zombies who are essentially just Hitler audio tracks, and he's saying all sorts of crazy, you know, Hitler speeches, and that stuff is probably all going to be removed in those regions because isn't it illegal to show the swastika in that place? I'm not sure. I'm not German, and I don't understand it if it is, because as much as Nazi Germany was a terrible, terrible thing, it's also an incredibly important piece of history which should never be forgotten. And, you know, just because they hide it and they don't cover it and they don't show it doesn't mean it didn't happen, dogs. You know, it's just silly. The swastika isn't evil. You know, the people who used it as a symbol for hate, they're the evil ones. You know, it's the exact same with words. But I don't really want to delve too much into that because there's a lot of sensitive folk, and, you know, maybe they prefer it to be censored. And the irony is, the first thing I did when I turned this game on was look for a beep setting, because I personally think it's funnier when it beeps it, because that's how the show's always been. So to me, it's kind of funny not knowing what they're saying. And although in the film you could hear them, it was always weird to me. And there is no option to beep the swear words, which is kind of sad. But it's still funny, and it's still a great game, and it's still definitely worth your time. So thank you for watching. I hope this is helping, and you take care now.